In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a seam, use your machine to actually finish the edge of the raw edge of your seam allowance, and then we're going to hem, and in this video we're going to do that by hand sewing. So this is an application that you could use for a sleeve or a pant leg, and as far as the hemming goes, and then for the seam finish, that would apply to any seam that you sew from now on so that you don't have your raw edge exposed. So we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to sew our seam first. So I have a singular piece here, it's already folded. So we're just going to be sewing one seam here. Okay, and we're going to do it at the standard 5/8 inch. So I need to find that on my needle plate, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end, standard stitch length. Here we go. Now that we have that sewn, what we want to do is we actually want to use our machines to create what's called an overlock stitch. So on my machine here, that looks like this one right here. Okay. You should have something that looks similar to this on your machine. If it doesn't look exactly like this, find the thing that's closest. So the idea is that we are just trying to create stitching in here so that this does not fray. So this is one of our options. We're going to use this option now. Okay. So of course we're going to do that inside of the seam allowance itself. Okay. So I'm going to do this at 3/8 rather than 5/8. So I'm looking for 3/8 on my machine. Okay. And with my needle up, then I can select my pattern. Okay, I'm going to put my presser foot down, and you're going to see what it turns into as you begin to sew. Feel free to try this first on a piece of sample fabric so you can just see what it looks like before you apply it to your sample. Hitting my back stitch button just secures it in place. I have got my piece that has my finish on the edge here, and so now what I can do is I can trim my threads and I can trim my fabric down just a little bit because I don't need all this excess along the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this close to but not through the stitching that I just did. Now, of course, we're going to take this to the iron and press it, and then we'll move forward. I want to point out that the seam that we sewed first was important because we can't just use this finishing stitch or this overlock stitch by itself. You need to have a solid, secure stitch for your seam first. Okay, this is here to keep it from unraveling. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn up the bottom of our fake sleeve or our fake pant leg here, and we're going to make sure that we press our seam allowance to one side, and so you're going to end up turning it up 1/4 inch and pressing. Okay, so go ahead and do that. All right, your hem, or excuse me, your pressing should be even the entire way around, so double check that. So if it's not, you need to repress it, and then you should have your fabric marked. I just marked mine really quickly at 1 1/4 inch, and so you're going to fold it up again and press one more time before we go to hem this. So make your fold even and then press. And just to be clear, you are pressing this folded edge so that it meets that 1 1/4 inch mark. So while I was at the iron, I did make sure that everything was pressed evenly the whole way around, that the width of my hem was the same, and I also pressed my seam allowance to the side entirely. So if you didn't do that before, you should do that. All right, so now I am taking some contrasting thread just so you can see what I am doing. And we're going to be using the hemming stitch. Okay. So recall your hand sewing skills, and we're going to do a single thread here. We don't need to do a double. Make my knot. And what we're doing here is we're going to tack the bottom up with some hand sewing. Okay. And we don't want to see it on the wrong side. You might see little tiny pinpricks because of the contrasting thread, but that should still show you just how little of this you want to see. So what I like to do is I like to hide my knot underneath here, okay, starting from the wrong side. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what looks like a diagonal. Okay, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab 1 or 2 threads, minimal. Okay, you shouldn't be able to really see it, but you will because this is green and the fabric is light. And you're going to grab it right above where the hem fold is, and you're going to just come right back down through on the inside here. Okay, not through all layers, but just through the fold. And you're going to create that hemming stitch. So mine's a little bit exaggerated for that first one. I'm going to go smaller now just so you guys can see what you really should be doing. And so small grab, got that diagonal stitch. Okay, and you can go, I like to go 1/4 inch, okay, just so that it is secure. And once you get the hang of this, it's fairly quick. Okay, and so on the wrong side, from here you're going to see teeny tiny little tacks. But if I were using a matching thread, you should not be able to see that. Also, this is a loosely woven fabric, so when I grab 1 or 2 threads, it really shows up. But once you get the technique down and you become more well practiced, it will look great. Okay, so you should have something that's starting to look like this. Can't really see it too much on this side, of course, you know why. And then you're going to do that the entire way around, and then you're going to secure it at the end. So I'll remind you how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and hem mine. Okay, so here's mine, almost finished. Definitely got easier to do when I wasn't holding my hands in front of a camera. So hopefully yours looks nice and even. And I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I'm going to go back to the wrong side of my hem, if you will. Okay. I just like for my knots to be hidden no matter what, even though we can see some of the stitching. I think that it just looks more professional to do it this way. So I'm going to hide my knot in here by creating a loop. Here, I'll pull that up. So I sewed through, created my loop, and I'm going to go through here and pull. I like to do that 2 or 3 times right in the same place, kind of almost on top of each other, and then pull through, trim. Now my knot is hidden. Okay, I have my hemming stitch evenly done the whole way around, and again, slightly visible, but should not be overdone. It should just be little pricks of color if you did use a contrasting thread like me. And so now if we turn this right side out, you have just created what would be a sleeve or a pant leg again, and it is now finished both in terms of hem and in seam.